walk you through the platform. We're going to build a simple web app, and then Bonnie's going to show some of the apps that she's built using some of the third-party services and things that we've exposed in Watson on Bluemix. So hopefully you guys find it great, and it'd be cool to see the next big idea out of Docker built on Bluemix. You guys will get a lot of good press out of that. So think about it. But thanks for having us, and it's great that you guys provided space for the Beta Masters team, and it's great that you're down here building cool things. So let's get started.
All right, so as I said, I'm Stefania. I'm actually from Dallas, Texas. So this is my first time in Miami. Really excited. I'm just going to go a little bit into more detail about what Bluemix is, but I hate PowerPoints. I find them to be the greatest drag on time, so I'm going to try and keep the PowerPoint pretty quick. That's me. If you ever want to harass me about things, that's a good way to get in contact with me. So personally, I hate this slide, but it basically explains what Bluemix is. Now, Bluemix is a platform as a service. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of infrastructure as a service. This is the next step up. So traditionally, you had core IT, which is mostly what banks still use today, where they manage everything from your network all the way up to the applications themselves. They're all kept proprietary within the company. Then you have the infrastructure as a service, which is what Software, the company that I acquired 2 years ago, does, in which they control the bare metal, they control sort of the installation, the hardware that you're installing on it. You control your virtual environments, your operating systems, things like that. And then you have Bluemix. So Bluemix runs on Cloud Foundry, which is an open source project that is owned by Pivotal Labs, and they are responsible for any further enhancements on the base service. Pivotal is partly owned by VMware and EMC. And then Cloud Foundry, the project itself, has 6 platinum sponsors, one which is IBM, you have HP, a few other companies. So we're all working together on this open source project to sort of make it better. IBM's big move these days, more open source, less big blue. That's very sort of, anybody remembers in the 80s Olympics when they had the woman from, I think it was Apple, run up and shatter this glass and all the big IBM-esque people over. The image is a little bit different these days. So, in short, platform as a service means I give you your services, like your databases, and I give you your code, and you start working. You don't have to worry about the operating system that it's running on. But we recently released OpenStack VMs. So if you want to control the operating system, you can. This is just a way of integration. So we have a thing called Enterprise Connector. I'm from mainframe. I used to work in Big Iron as of 4 months ago. So for us, the big thing is trying to get the analytical processing power of the mainframe into the cloud. So when we do that with this enterprise connector, this icon right here actually relates to a service. You can connect up your existing IT infrastructure to Bluemix. So if you don't want to move your database off of whatever you have, you can connect with API keys to that database and use some of the services within Bluemix. How does Bluemix work? This is a really complicated slide with a lot of pictures. Basically what Bluemix is you have Cloud Foundry that's sitting on a software bare metal server stack that then pushes your app into the cloud. And what this image is showing you is something we call DevOps services, so it's our version of Git. It's an online collaborative platform for editing and pushing code out. Then you have your apps, the different runtimes. We have, I guess now if you include .NET, we have 8 runtimes. .NET is in experimental phase. So if you're a big .NET programmer, you have that now. And then you have sort of your third-party services, which are ones that are not supported by IBM, they're supported by a third-party entity, but you can still access them with Bluemix. And then we have the community build packs, which is what this symbol is right here. So before .NET was officially supported by the platform, you could still upload a .NET application, but it just meant that we wouldn't be able to support you when getting that running. Then you have containers and trying to get through these fast. I said I was going to do fast, and I'm going really slow. So, Bluemix, you can create apps quickly. It's the biggest Cloud Foundry instance out there right now because we have about 6 or 7 dozen different services options, but you'll see those when I go through that in a little bit. We have monitoring and analytics, so you can constantly keep an eye on what's going on with your application if you have CPU memory leaks, anything like that. Boring. announced a partnership with, I'm really low, so sorry my face is getting really red. A partnership with Apple a few, month and a half ago, I think.
Year.
So the big,
Year ago.
Yeah, last July.
not bad. So now the big thing is mobile first, which is deploying apps on iOS, but we also still support mobile web and Android. There's the different Twitter services. What I'm going to show you today, one of my Watson application uses the basic Twitter API to do a personality insights against people that tweet. And then, of course, our data visualization services, that is a picture of personality insights, so that you can visualize somebody's analysis. And what it does is it uses the big 5 traits, their needs and their wants, and creates a personality profile of the person whose text you're analyzing.
Is this part of Watson?
This is part of Watson, yeah. And I'll go into that in more detail in a second. So we have 3 different versions of Bluemix. We have public, which is what you'll all see if you log in for 30 days. You have on-prem, which is where you have your own instance of Bluemix, and then you have dedicated, in which you have your own instance of Bluemix sitting on SoftLayer's servers. There's just different levels. This is more on Bluemix dedicated, again, where you have your own SoftLayer instance. This is mostly for, SLAs, things like that, trying to get reliability on your standards. So why Cloud Foundry? Well, Cloud Foundry is open source, as I mentioned, and it's community supported. So Pivotal is going to be releasing a new version of Cloud Foundry built completely on Go, called Diego. So this is going to completely change the platform from what it's currently built on. So they're constantly integrating it, and then all those platinum, diamond, all those sponsors are adding their own input. So it's really a community effort. How does Bluemix work? I'm actually going to show you how that works. Boring. Here's that bit. Boring. Thank you. Okay, so I said I would keep it quick.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming.
Having the fun part. I hate slides as a passion. So, who in here already has a Bluemix account? Who registered? That doesn't work right now.
I haven't.
Okay, fantastic. So if you were to log into Bluemix, this is what it would look like if you already have an account. This is my dashboard. Bluemix literally, as of last 2 weeks ago, got a complete overhaul on its interface. So this is all new, it's pretty. It's mostly a cosmetic overhaul. This is the basic dashboard, and since we've added virtual machines and containers, those are here as well. So depending on the level of service you need, you would either deploy the app in a Droplet using a Docker container, or you would have your own virtual machine. As you can see, virtual machines are still in beta. A lot of services are going to be in beta because we are constantly adding new stuff. So, going down further, these are my applications. I only have one running right now because I somehow ended up with only 512 of memory. And so running more than 2 apps will crash my instance. But y'all will get 2 gig of memory if you sign up. I'm a little jealous. These are just the different apps. I can see what services are connected to them. I can see the status of them just from here. And then we have our catalog, which is usually the most interesting part. So the catalog is separated into several sections that can be easily accessed by clicking on these check marks on the left. The boilerplates are my favorite because if you don't know anything about a certain runtime, a certain service, you can deploy a boilerplate and it comes with a sample application. We're going to be doing that in a little bit. So it gets you quick and started. That's not even a phrase. It gets you started very quickly to sort of figure things out, and then from there you can either use DevOps or Git or whatever method you like and dissect that code. My coworker is on mainframe, used to tell me all code comes from one COBOL program that was written back in the 70s, 60s. So this day and age, a lot of people my age, what we're doing is we learn from each other and learn from each other's code. So it's kind of applying that methodology. So the different boilerplate, all it means is we'll look at the IoT boilerplate. So the IoT boilerplate comes with the Node.js runtime, which this particular boilerplate runs Node-RED. Anybody familiar with that? No? Okay, well I'll be going through it in a minute. With a Cloud and NoSQL database on the back end. So I come from a relational database background, about 8 years working in data warehousing and DB2. So to me, clouding a NoSQL database is the weirdest thing in the world. But I've totally realized in a mobile world, in this sort of rapid information world, you kind of need that unstructured data to be able to get more out of your experiences, especially with customers. And feel free to interact with me at any time. This is a flexible presentation. So
I'm curious, actually, about the group we have in here. From an application language usage, right? You guys have experience with any particular application languages like Ruby or Java, Node?
Quite a few.
Okay.
all the above.
How about anybody else? What are you writing?
Ruby, HTTP, JavaScript.
Okay. So, yeah, and the reason I ask is because, Frank, we're going to do a demo in Node-RED, but the really cool part is it really doesn't matter, right? So you guys need whatever language you want, right? We don't drive you towards anything. In fact, you can go out to GitHub and there's about another 190 runtimes. If you write in COBOL, there's one out there.
And that's what I
That's why I use that
I
example.
haven't tried to deploy a COBOL program, but who knows?
How about Fortran?
I haven't looked. They probably have it.
Let it die. So that's what these community build packs are for. These are our runtimes currently on the front end. Now I said there was .NET. We have a whole other section at the bottom called experimental. These are new things that are coming out, but they haven't reached beta mode yet. They're still kind of in alpha. So that's where .NET is sitting at. But we have 6 runtimes right now, plus a community build pack. So that means if you have a certain runtime that maybe isn't in this list, and there's a community build pack report out there, it will still run on Bluemix. Just fine. And the nice thing about Foundry, it'll detect which build pack you need most of the time. So you can just upload it, it says, oh, you have a Java application running right now, I'm going to give you all the tools to run Java. We also have, so this is where it gets into the fun stuff. My favorite thing is Watson. So I joined the company in 2010. In 2011, Watson competed in Jeopardy against the two top grossing competitors of the current era, and won. And I remember being a fledgling intern at IBM thinking this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So this is kind of what's come out of that. It started out as just a simple experiment to see if they could win Jeopardy, and it's evolved into something that's really going to, from a personal standpoint, revolutionize the way we handle problems. They sent Watson to medical school to help nurses and doctors better diagnose people. And I think they did a survey, 90% of nurses say that their jobs are a lot easier having Watson along a lot more accurate since they've been able to use this application. They've sent it to research centers, financial, everything.
One of the other cool things is, you guys remember the BP drill blowout, right? So they're actually using Watson. Watson's doing predictive analytics on the drilling to prevent blowouts and hopefully save lives that way as well.
I ask you a question. I've been thinking about it all day since you've gotten to this subject. As good as Watson can be, it's not going to be useful unless you can load it with data.
Right.
When you sent it to medical school, somebody took this huge body of data, loaded it so that Watson could analyze it. How does an individual programmer take advantage of the technology when no individual person could load anything like that?
Right, so and that's part of the, you'll notice all these say data on them. The reason is because there's only 2 corpuses. And the corpus is where they take that data. So we have travel and healthcare right now available in the public domains. And what happens is you get all that data, but the beauty of Watson is, and sometimes the caveat is, you have to teach him to understand the relationships of the data. So one example I use is when they were prepping Watson for the Jeopardy competition, there's a video out there when they ask him a question, and he replies with what is the answer, but it involves some cussing and some very crude language.
That was after he found the Urban Dictionary.
Right. He used Urban Dictionary. That is 100% the correct answer, but it's not socially appropriate. So you have to teach Watson to understand. What he does is he processes natural language in a way that we think. So colloquialisms, regional problems, things like that. So you kind of have to take about a month from. Somebody on the Watson team quoted me, it takes 2 months to take a huge body of data and turn it into a corpus.
With how many man hours? Or how
I
many
don't-
people working on it?
So that I think they, like the initial training that they do on this like a Watson implementation, you have to have the data, right? Most of it has to be unstructured text. That's Watson operates in natural language, right? So if you don't have the unstructured text, Watson's not going to really do much. And then you have to have a set of 2,000 questions and answers, no question with no answers that you know are right? And that's how they start training it. Once it's loaded with that, it learns. But from actual man hours, I'm not sure. But to answer your other question, it's not exposed here, but the Watson group does have, it's a Watson data cloud. So as they're building these corpuses and as they go to different industries, they're constantly adding more publicly available information. We acquired a company called Explorus a couple months ago that 30 million anonymized personal health records, basically pictures of everything from perfectly healthy people to people dying of cancer. And so that's being added into the Watson healthcare cloud. So we're trying to build it to where, you know, we're not just brokering data, but leveraging data to actually provide insights for stuff. So, you know, the Twitter relationship is part of it. The Weather Channel relationship is going to insurance companies with all this weather data. So there's a lot that's going to be, you know, continually put out here, and as they add these services, you know, they're going to start exposing them. So.
But I imagine any of those data sets with real value will be held very closely by the compilers, because that is the other people who come along and write software to do that type of analysis and throw the cloud and thousands of processors at it, but only the weather channel and only.
That's part of the challenge with
That Watson and IBM, we try to, you know, they know this data is valuable. They might not know how to extract the data out of it, but they're not necessarily just going to give it to someone like IBM, right? So we have to.
You'd be surprised. So I work with one of the three big Detroit, well, there's really only two big ones left, but you know, the large motor manufacturer. And they have a massive amount of data. And we're actually talking with them about loading it up, not just in Watson, but also giving them raw data. So their thought is, hey, let's create this open data set and let's see what people come up with and tie it in to, see where it goes. So the mindset's changing even at the, even at the large corporations.
You're talking about the automobile manufacturers. None of us can easily manufacture an automobile, so the data is not essential to them continuing to operate, but it can allow them to refine what they do. But if it's purely data, personality analysis, the ability to figure out what somebody might really like if they buy one thing on Amazon, they might like another thing, something that doesn't require that physical infrastructure to go with it. Anybody will turn into a business.
True, but you'll find that there's actually, in fact, one of the cool beta, or actually experimental Watson ones, there are, of course, going to be those private ones, but there's a new one out that you can stick Watson on somebody's, or multiple people's Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook feeds, and it'll analyze all the photos and videos. And using that, it can predict trends in fashion, right? And that's something that somebody in the room could write, right? I mean, it's not that, the heavy lifting has kind of been done on that side. So, yeah, there's obviously going to be areas where, companies have a lot of exposure if they were to put it out there. But there's also a lot of areas that are, I think, there's some great things to be done.
another thing is to be said on that industry. There's the Internet of Things. There's endless possibilities opening up. And machine-to-machine communications. And just the way people are thinking about smarter homes, smarter vehicles, smarter transportation, smarter cities. So how do you get your car to connect with the transportation, system of the city or Miami-Dade, predict traffic, and give you different alternative security patterns, many different things that right now your car is not telling you anything besides which put gas, right? So all that, it probably makes itself, but you're actually taking care of business and many other things, and that's where the world is going. Not only for manufacturers of automobiles, but just every single industry. And And it's just the beginning. I mean, it's just, we haven't scratched the surface.
So look at it like this, right? Look at it like this. Over time, the raw data, it still is very valuable, but it's becoming more open and more free, right? It's become freely available across the board. And how you analyze it and what you do with it and the algorithms based on what you're trying to get out of it, that you're taking raw data and transforming it into useful information. And that is where the real value is. So things like Watson, which is an enabling technology, Watson itself is giving you those capabilities to get to that point, and that's what everybody's after. And people can take the same raw data and analyze it 10 different ways and get different value out of it. So that's really where the industry is going, is really focusing on providers giving these enabling technologies so people can do what they need to with it with the raw data that's available.
What was on the finance industry?
With the finance industry, it's part of this drive to be able to sort of eliminate the need for stockbrokers. And that you're trying to better predict the movement and the flux of stock based on not just what you see on the ticker side, but also, you know, a good stockbroker. My master's degree is in finance, so to me, this idea of a good person that has to work in the finance field is they know this certain random thing happened in this company, and suddenly stock drops 2 days later. And sometimes when we look at these events, we don't correlate them, and the idea is that Watson is going to be able to massively analyze all this different data to better make a more efficient market.
Also for like a wealth advisor to analyze their clients' personality through the emails they send and how they're, you know, based on, you know, they're flipping out because you put your money, you put their money somewhere, or the other way around, right? They're really happy with this. So it's actually a pretty cool dashboard that a wealth advisor can have in front of them. They have their client's portfolio, the emails they've gotten over the past couple months, what's happening in the market, you know, from Bloomberg. So it's pretty cool demo. I didn't show it to you today, but we've seen it.
Have you had any success at, say, predicting the relationship between currencies by feeding in all the news in the world, all the government affairs, all of the politics? And that would be the basic relationship between countries and their currencies and interest rates.
You can figure out the Forex exchange, let's talk.
Well, with the login to Bluemix,
You never know.
Did they do well?
Hey, Brian. Sounds like the future talk needs to be on Watson.
So I don't personally know if anybody hearing that, but
It's very interesting to me.
I don't personally know the full extent of the financial analysis they're doing, but I could definitely find out.
That would be a core of knowledge that you could build with publicly available data, and it seems like that's one of the.
Sounds like they are against the industry stuff.
All the real-time stock quotes, all the stock data, all the press releases, everything you see on finance.yahoo or Market Watch, or
Right.
all of this publicly available data would be a terrific database to play with.
Yeah, I bet you that they are doing that. Like I said, I'm not fully cognizant of the extent of the financial analysis they're doing. I just know the theory behind it. So let me go through
Go.
the services. Yeah. So just a quick overview of some of the Watson services. We have, of course, the language translation, and they're adding constantly more languages to Watson to be able to naturally, you know, kind of everybody heard of Battlefish. It used to be the big internet translator since the 90s, I think I was using it when I was younger. This is kind of taking that to a next level. We have personality insights, which I will show you in action later on. Q&A, that's the big thing with Watson and Jeopardy, was ask it a question, he'll give you his 3 top answers, and the reason why you picked them. So it's kind of helping you to answer questions it's about related to the medical field and that. Then we have a fun one, speech to text and text to speech, so your computer's going to talk at you. We built a foosball table that was wired with Bluemix about a month ago, and one of the things that it does is when it's tweeted at, it will articulate that tweet to the people playing the game. Visual recognition, that's how we use in photos to do sort of geo-positioning recognition. If you've ever used, I guess Google has their Google goggles does something kind of similar. And then we have third-party internet applications. Mobile, I'm going to quickly go through these. DevOps, which is that collaborative Git platform. Web applications, of course, MQ-Lite, MQTT. Integration that I talked earlier about, Enterprise Connector, that's this cloud integration, how you connect up to your existing on-prem services applications. Then we get into what y'all are probably more concerned with, which is data management, and below that would be big data and analytics. So everybody's familiar with DB2, I'm sure, at least have heard of it. That is actually, so we have a second DB2 service now, but originally that's this SQL database. They rebranded it on Bluemix. And you can get a small database for free to play around with, even after your trial ends. And then you have DB2 on cloud, which is the beefed up version for more enterprise cloud connections. Cloud and SQL, I will show you that later. That's the sort of JSON-driven database techniques. And then there are a slew of third-party, Elephants, Mongo, Redis, we have a few more experimental. And then you get into big data. I'll be showing you DashDB in the lab. You'll actually get to play around with it. They have some sample tables you can quickly look at. Then you have analytics using Hadoop. And then insights for Twitter is kind of a fun one. You can tell if a tweet has positive or negative sentiment. You can tell if the tweeter is male or female, has children, is married. There's a lot of stuff you can run through Twitter insights to analyze potential traffic and mostly. And then, of course, big insights for Apache Hadoop, which is something I wish I could show people, but that's a bare metal install. And unfortunately, I don't have them. So, that was a quick overview of the catalog. Anybody want to look at another service more specifically? Or I can get y'all doing my 5-step path.
Here, if you could show them how, so here's what I'd like to show people is, you see something that you're interested in, just click on the tile. So just click on one of the tiles, and what it'll do is it'll bring up a page that tells you about that service and the costs that could be associated, what the free tier is. Okay, so, and then documentation is always on the left-hand side under View Docs. That'll take you to another website and kind of bring you through, okay, how do I use the service? How do I code for it or bind it to my application?
So the beauty of Bluemix is we have almost too much documentation, so every single service on here is going to have some form of documentation. Some of it's more in-depth than others. We also have my favorite part is the solutions catalog. So if there's a certain thing, in particular IoT, that you're interested in, and you just want to see it in quick action, they'll give you some use cases, they'll do an overview of that particular application, how it's connecting, how it's working, and then the fun part is try it out now. And so with this one, you can go check it out, download it, and you can actually use your phone. And it'll use the, what is that?
Accelerometer.
Thank you. You probably work in IT, I don't know what anything's called. It'll work with that, and you just kind of have fun, and it does this little drawing where you look around a bunch. I don't know, it's a little amusing if you get bored one day. So, I want to get to the meat and potatoes. So anybody brought a laptop, now would be the time to pull it up. And we're just going to do a really quick hands-on workshop, really 5 minutes. Stop that.
Has everybody signed up for the free account?
I'm going to do it in a second. Part of this. Sorry?
So if they, so we may want to give them the link so they can sign up.
So, literally go to bluemix.net and hit the,
So it's ibm.biz/meetup_Florida. So if you go there, you can sign up for the free account.
What's that? Oh, if you're already logged in, you've already got it.
Anybody else need that on anything? That's the Wi-Fi, sorry. The Wi-Fi's up here. So it's R3L yes, and then the password is R3
That's the cool part. You can
Right.
use some of the, like,
Would you say the site was
and all that.
Yeah, that's right.
And also any of these
So
terminals,
it's /meter
all the way
export
to that
Florida.
screen where it shows you the catalog, all the way at the bottom. At the bottom, there's a link that.
So you should be able to go in there and sign up for a free account.
Like the alpha bills.
So the great thing is, when you sign up, there's no credit card required, which was personally a draw for me. And then once you get over your trial phase, if you look at all the services and
Yes,
the
Bluemix.
runtimes, there's a premium level. So you get 375 gigabyte hours. Now, I said I have 512, right? My apps run about 256. So that's where they calculate your gigabyte hours. I think when I was on a card and I had about 5 apps running, I spent about $4 a month. So you can coast on that premium level as an individual, as long as you feel like playing with it. And there's a ton of stuff that is free. It's just when you get into more heavier workloads, the heftier stuff, that's when it starts getting into the big goals.
Yeah, like some of the stuff that is permanently free, right? Like, I think like the analytics for review, you can put 50 gigs in a, you know,
Right, yeah, that's the premium, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the premium guarantee. The other cool thing is that, so, IBM has a global entrepreneur program. So like, you know, if you come up with that really cool idea, you know, come to IBM, you build it on Bluemix, you know, they'll work with you and if, you know, if the global entrepreneur program, accepts your startup, then they'll give you between $1,000 and $10,000 a month in free cloud compute.
This was the experimental catalog we was talking about earlier. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the catalog, there's a link with this icon that takes you to the experimental. And these are the ones, they're called experimental because they're actively working on them. So at any given time, it could rapidly change. Right? Things will disappear for you. So they tell you cautionary, use this. But one of the cool services he's referring to is the message resonance. So what this does, and I'm really excited to get to play with this. You'll take somebody, say, you know, have you ever met that person where you're talking to them and it's just everything you say seems to be the wrong thing? And they're always upset with you? But what message resonance does is it takes what they say, it puts sort of a weight on their different words based on how they will positively react to that word, and helps you to sort of craft a response based on those weights, so that what you're saying to them is what they want to hear. And also what you're wanting to say. A little creepy, but very cool.
And the video one is actually not out there.
Yeah.
It's due out today, so it hasn't shown yet. It's probably gonna be on that.
So that's what Teddy Rogerson.
Yes.
How is this, I mean, compare or integrate with export control systems? I know, I work for a system that we are tweaking export control systems. They try to translate to web, like the developers.
Right.
But it seems like it's something they would like. So I just need to ask.
So what type of apps do you guys run on? I mean,
Everything.
well, like is it WebSphere?
Yeah.
Is it acting as a middleware platform? I mean, what?
For web, we use Magento integrating directly with export content.
Okay.
But for the whole business side, so export content, they want us to do something more web friendly or more
And something less lock-in-ish?
less.
I don't know the right word for that. Less clicky.
Proprietary.
Yeah, that would be the.
Yeah, but they want to do it and sometimes it's not like that right now. I just see like it's becoming like a new platform for IBM, like the same way that it was incorporated like 18 years ago, I don't know how many. I just thinking it is a parallel of the project or it is an integration that you are going to do?
How should I answer that question?
That might be something we gotta, I don't know how this would integrate with it.
I mean, well, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you got
I
it.
mean, it depends on what client. I mean, some of the stuff I would port over, and the stuff that I couldn't,
Use it number.
I would use, you know, gateway or cloud integrator or API management, and they connect to it, right? Because, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about is hybrid, because we're just talking about the public model, but it has all the connectors to create a hybrid model. It connects to on-prem, or it connects to you've got a virtual data center in Amazon, you know, you can connect to that too, right? It's just an on-prem, it's connected to your own stuff. So you can create a lot of different hybrid applications. Right? So you can connect to it. You just have to figure out what makes sense to keep on the outside, or what makes sense to put on file.
All right, so the app building part. Everybody knows that open, you can log into Bluemix. If you don't know where Bluemix is at, it's bluemix.net. And then go to this catalog view. We're going to be working with the Java DB web starter. So there's two different versions. You can use Cloud App, which is NoSQL, or you can use Java DB, which is SQL. For this exercise, I don't care which one you use actually, but you will see a different dashboard view based on which one I go into. So for everybody who wants to follow along, I'm going to be doing it with you. It's literally 5 steps. And you don't have to code anything.
You just want to load it.
Huh?
You just don't want to load it.
Exactly. Well, we're going to be overachievers when we go back to it. All right, so literally, like he said, you click on this.
The connection is very slow here.
I've noticed that. I managed to get it up really fast. I'm excited.
I'm waiting for the catalog page to give it a number.
Okay. I'll take my time. It's literally, it's 5 steps. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, Java DB, that's where.
all right.
So it's going to be the orange meteor. I don't know what significance that icon has.
None.
None. Okay.
I don't think so.
So while everybody's waiting for that to load, this particular runtime, like I said, it comes with the SQL database, which is DB2. All the apps come with monitoring and analytics. That's just kind of a standard thing. And then we're going to it uses Liberty for Java. I personally code Node.js these days, but so if you wanted to modify this, you could easily redo it in Node.js or PHP or Ruby, whichever runtime you prefer. We just happen to have a boilerplate that uses Liberty. As I said, you can click on this dot link if you ever get confused. It'll take you over here to the specific subsection for this particular runtime. And then there's information about, like I said, the 375 gigabyte hours. But what we are going to do, since we're all on the premium levels, is you're going to be grabbing a name. It needs to be unique, because this will be its web address.
Found that out. Test does not work.
Test 1, test 2, test 3, any version of test is not going to
No.
work. So what I like to do is my initials for, just for these sample applications. My initials, and usually I use the name of the app.
Can you zoom in on the screen? Like Command plus?
Gosh.
That'll work.
Okay. So the great thing about it is it'll pre-fill in the host name if you want to change that again. It'll auto-select the free beta of the SQL database as well as the free monitoring analytics and the default runtime level. That's what we want. Is everybody up the screen? Anybody know? I can slow down. Okay. Then once you give it a name, just hit create. And it will do that. And then we'll get to run this.
This is where it plays the Jeopardy music.
Yeah, no, but this is the part where if you think about what's really going on right now. So in the old world, right now, we would be spinning up a VM or requesting it from, the infrastructure guy, waiting for the data to us. Have to install an OS. Then we have to install the application server. We'd also then have to create the database, get IPs, network them. Okay, then we need to get a DNS, address, right? So
Firewall.
think about all of that is basically done, right? So that is
the security steps.
no, we put security on yet.
So literally, so you saw there were 3 different sort of icons attached to this, a runtime and 2 services. The more services you have, the little bit longer it's going to take to start up because it's booting up my database, my server, my connection, creating all that. What's happening right now actually is it's also getting the code for this sample application, setting up your database, getting everything on top of each other, and then starting up the application. So if you were successful, you should see this screen. We're going to give you sort of a quick sheet. So you can use the Cloud Foundry command line interface. Everybody in here use command line? Live meeting say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. With this, you can use the command line to edit locally and then deploy your app up to Cloud Foundry. They give you a big cheat sheet on the commands you need to connect, which is really handy because I never remember these connection commands. You can also use Git. I'll show you that in a second. Or Eclipse, everybody's favorite IBM IDE. I don't use it, but
Actually, the cool one is, I don't know if you guys, anybody here uses Ionic, but you can actually use Ionic.
yes, because they do the mobile first with that framework. So, what I usually tell people is to go to your app overview, which is on the left right here. And this is the dashboard for your application. It'll show you, so this particular application is using 512 of my memory, so as soon as we're done, I'm killing this thing because I got another app running. It's probably right. It tells you the activity log, so if the app crashes at any point, it'll show up over here. Your app health, if we had reached the screen before it had been running, it would have said your app is picking up. Stop, start, this is where you can look at your services. So if you want to add more, these are the ones that are currently bound to my app, meaning they're bound to my app. I don't know how to explain that any differently. Just means they're connected to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the network connections are there.
Right.
Monitoring analytics, it means it's
They're
watching.
associated.
And if you had, see, I'll show you an app in a second that has Watson Personality Insights attached to it. They use what we call VCAP services, which stands for VMware Connection Application, something that has nothing to do with connection information. It's just VMware's proprietary naming structure. And what it can do is you can build an app that doesn't have hard-coded credentials like API keys. And what it'll do is it'll programmatically pull this information from the bound services and fill that into your application. So if it's not bound, you have to enter the API keys manually. If it is bound, you can use VCAP services. So that's why we buy apps.
So that's the difference between add and client.
I was driving me crazy earlier, like.
Well, really, buying just means there's a pre-existing service that doesn't have an application attached to it. Adding means I'm going to add a service. Basically, adding does the add and buying step, whereas buying, you've already done the add step and you just want to attach it to an application. So once your app hits this app health is running, I want you to click this wrap up here. And it will say, please wait while the database is being initialized. This is the starter application. Do it. There we go. Boom! We created an app. I think that was 5 steps. So what this is, people like, one of my coworkers says he keeps this up and uses it as a grocery list.
I actually had to do that before.
Right, exactly. So you can hit the add button. I can put in something and just add again. So seems pretty strange, right? All I've done is fill in some text. So if I hit refresh, one of them will still be there. So I hit refresh, the data's still there. So what's going on in the back end, right? You go back to your dashboard, scroll down to the SQL database service. Your usage changes. Right. Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah,
It didn't say, it didn't,
I've done that so many times. And then you're gonna hit launch, and this will launch the SQL dashboard.
Round trip to Guam.
My computer's having a midlife crisis, so it's exceptional.
And it might be the Wi-Fi.
So this is the sort of the back end for managing this database. If you have, the typical, if you want to load data using CSV file or any other method, there's that. You can work with your table, which is what we're going to do, just to look at it. So,
Can you point a local client at?
as in, yeah. We actually have a data cache service, so we want to do that. But one thing you can do, we have a remote sync. So you could have an application running locally on your computer that's connected up using those API keys to a database. And what it'll do is as soon as you get back to an online connection, it'll put it on the sync again. But you never have to upload the application on the internet. As long as you're connected to that database, it will run it, and vice versa. You can connect down.
And just to clarify, because it is essentially a service basically running on the internet, you can set security controls to say only connect from this IP or from, you know, however you want to set that up. So this way, you know that whatever's connected to it is your stuff and not somebody getting into your database.
So I hit work with tables, I hit to-do list, which is what that application generated, and then browse data, and those are all majors. So do that for me, I can do filters, anything else, export the table. That's the basic SQL backend. Now I'm going to show you NoSQL. So what I have over here, it's called PB Watson. It's a project I came up with at about 4 o'clock in the morning one night after working tirelessly at something else, and I said, oh, this would be fun to just show people. So this is what it looks like on the back end. This is the Node-RED interface. Node-RED is just sort of a cosmetic drag and drop interface for Node.js. People write these nodes. They write special, all that a node is an HTML file and a JavaScript file that's been added to NPM, which is a package manager that Node.js uses. So whenever you want to add things like what we call a twit module, I want to be able to pull somebody's timeline, that's an NPM package. It's kind of like a library. It is a library. So this is Node.js, or Node-RED, geez. And this is the flow, this is the program. So it's about, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 different nodes, and it is running right now. I'm going to kill that other app, just so I don't inhibit this one. I gotta get them to give me more memory.
Yeah, I see. The engineers I see have like 500.
They usually have 8. They usually have 8. But I have 2,000 services, so I can keep apps dead for a while.
Oh, wow. I have 4. I'm like
Right,
standard
right.
3.
I'm almost afraid that if I ask them for more, they're going to take my services down. Let me just delete this real quick. The app in question is this Tweet Me Watson right here. If you want to play with it, I think it's fine right now, even though this one's hogging its memory. You can, if you have Twitter, just write a tweet and then hashtag it with Tweet Me Watson. And this ID will reply back to you with your top 5 big 5 personality traits. So it's done. I changed this out. There was a trait called emotional range, which in the back end they call it neuroticism, so I thought it would be fun to put it down on the front end, and people didn't agree with me, so I changed it back to emotional range. Okay, cool. So what's going on here? I'll do it just so you can see an output on the right.
Emotional range, is that a nice way to say a drama tweet?
It means you're like, well, one of the, so if you look at the full analysis, I'll show you the demo. They have, for every Watson service out there, if you type in the service name, like Bluemix demo, a demo will show up in Google. You can click on it and you can use it right then and there. It's the same thing as if you were to have deployed the boilerplate for it. So neuroticism composes of fiery is a trait. So people that cuss a lot in their Twitter trigger neuroticism. People that use a lot of exclamation points trigger that as well. I mean, it's, you know, it's a soft science, so.
Andrew just popped in.
Oh, nice. So what I did right here, so what's happening, thanks. What's happening is somebody, why don't I open the node first? So, but this one is basic. You hit this pencil icon, and it'll take you to a kind of a authorize this app to access your information. That's it. No API keys are involved in this particular section. I'm looking for all public tweets, and there's a reason for that because I want anytime somebody hashtags any of these, and it'll actually pick up any of them, but just to be safe, I'll put all 3 in. And then you can give it just a random name. So anytime somebody uses the hashtag #TweetMeWatson, this application will pick it up. Then I get a little complicated, we're pulling out the Twitter handle. So these are function nodes. Anything you can do in JavaScript, you can put in a function node. It's just a kind of wrapper for JavaScript. So what this is doing is it's pulling out the screen name and then setting it as a global variable for you to use later on. This is where the data part comes in. So you can see my API keys. I didn't clean this up, but basically what's happening is I have the Twig module installed, so I had to manually add the module in the back end. That's probably the only manual process you have to get on it. Then what I'm doing is I'm setting up sort of an infrastructure to be able to pull 200 tweets, you want to mean anything? 200 tweets that are not retweets. So Watson can use about 10 tweets to give you some information, but it's not going to be that great. I mean, if you actually analyze the ID that runs this, it always says agreeableness, because I always post the same exact tweet every single time. But 180 is what they advise, 200 is a good number. Any more than that is great, but you don't want to sort of overpower Twitter's limits on how much they're going to give you. And then it kind of, this is where it actually connects to Twitter, gets the statuses. And then what I'm doing, what you can normally do is you can feed a JSON payload into personality insights with things like time of day that the tweet was posted, very specific demographic information so you can get a little bit more out of it. I just shoved it all into one gigantic text block because it's pretty fast, simple, easy. And so I'll look at this. When I open up this node, what do you think it's going to look like? Code, no code, a bunch of sliders, some buttons, do an answer. Anybody want to guess? There are no wrong answers.
So decision point, yes, no?
Absolutely nothing. I can name the node and that's it. So what I've done, thank you for answering. Always like the person who's brave enough to guess that one. What I've done is over here, I have attached, as I said, I have bound personality insights. That's interesting. I have bound personality insights to this application. And it'll show my credentials in a second. But Node-RED processes my VCAT for me. I don't have to do any programming for that. So all these API credentials right here, Node-RED is already handling. I don't have to do any programming with personality insights itself. I just drag that node over from that toolbox on the left, and I'm good to go. It's very specific on what it expects. So when you click on a node, just click on it real quick. When you click on a node and you hit the info tab, I know this is going to be kind of small, so forgive me. It says, I need message.payload. That's what I'm looking for. If you send it anything else, it's going to go, no, I can't analyze that. And it gives me this very specific return of message.insights. Those are my only restrictions. So I feed that through. And then this function node down here is pulling the big 5 out. This one is a formatting node. So this is where I build the message with the handle information, that global variable I established earlier. I can now bring it in instead of having to keep passing it through. And then what it does is it takes the raw personality insights, formats it in a JSON payload. I keep saying the word JSON. Is anybody not familiar with that?
I know.
It's everybody familiar with XML? That nested tree structure? That's basically JSON. It's this nested tree structure using braces, and that's how you can just keep going further and further down. So where it said message.payload, message is the primary tree, payload is like a child in that tree, and I can keep having children under that. That's how I keep, that sounds terrible. That's how I keep describing, So what I'm doing here is, I want to send CloudAnt a message payload with the properties of handle, meaning their username, and their personality insights raw output. So maybe later on, once I get enough things, I just added this today, I kind of want to do like a demographic data analysis chart on different people, times of day when they're tweeting, things like that. So exploring the data further. Because if I didn't have this, the data comes in disappears. And so that goes out here to my CloudAnt data guys, and then over here it sends a tweet reply back to you. Now, if you saw how fast that happened, all that happens like this. You send tweet me Watson, boom, you get a reply back. That's how fast he works, which is what I find really exciting. Good skill?
Did
Openness.
you get a response?
Openness, you must retweet a lot. I said openness, you must retweet a lot. I'm starting getting used to the indicators, so I said
I don't know what really says, it says 96%, I don't know what it is.
okay, so I'll explain that to you. So remember how I said there was a demo for everything? Let's see, I've Googled it 8,000 times. This is, if you were to deploy the boiler, oh, they changed
It used to be Moby Dick.
right, it used to be,
What happened?
well, they had to scan.
Oh, this is the, no. So this is
Right, but they-
State of the Union.
Yeah, but they updated it for Spanish like this week.
Oh.
So I guess they changed up. So it used to be Moby Dick, you would analyze it now. I guess now we're analyzing,
It's a speed, that's an old one.
is it not any- this is older than me. So if you were to deploy the boilerplate, this is what you would see. The personality insights boilerplate in that section. You get this app. Now you put in a body of text. So tweets is going to be a little bit harder. I might actually smush them all together, but you should take some blog. For instance, I put my manager's LinkedIn through it, and you have to laugh. She's actually really great. So just hit the analyze button. So when it says you're open, these are the traits it's sort of
Can you zoom in?
pushing up into. I'm sorry?
Can you zoom in? Command plus? Yeah.
So these are the big five traits. When you tweet at Watson, he's actually picking this top trait right here. And these are sort of what they're analyzing. So openness means, you know, intellect, authority challenging, imagination. Everybody was curious about emotional range. Fiery, prone to worry, melancholy, moderation, so you drink a lot. Self-consciousness, susceptible to stress. It's not exactly the most flattering one to get. I contemplate taking it out completely, but gotta be honest, right? Agreeableness, things like that. Then, if you want to do further analysis, and this is what I'm getting from him, this is what I'm putting into my database, this is raw data right here. You get needs and values, so kind of like Maslow's hierarchy, you can apply to this.
Just, I don't want to throw one thing in here, some, you know, a parallel mechanism that Facebook is using. Facebook now, I don't know what technology they're using, but something they're doing, like they're analyzing people's posts automatically, searching for people who might be suicidal, and they're posting certain messages on Facebook, and they have a special team now that are trained to reach out to those people or their families to try to get them help before they do.
Yeah, well, one of the things I saw, this is an IBMer did this, he works with Watson, but pretty much totally with the federal government. He put, recent shooting in Charleston, he put that guy's manifesto through this. And he's like, what if someone was out there reading this stuff, 5 days before this happened? So it's kind of a,
Yeah.
it's a sad thing, right? But,
Well, these are the types of technologies that can be leveraged.
use it for, right?
Yeah, these are the type of, I mean, I don't know if you can scour the internet continuously looking for, you know, indicators, but for a very specific case like a Twitter or a Facebook,
Yeah.
and you have something, you have the mechanism to be able to do that as the data is coming in, looking for trends, you can take action before, you know, something bad happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Facebook is using Watson for marketing or advertising targets, right? So you may notice your advertising getting more specific to you.
Yeah.
So they are using it. It's very possible that they're also throwing the, you know, the
Sure.
posts through it.
How is it deriving this kind of percentages again? Just what's the basis for it to make it?
So that requires a psychology degree for me to fully explain, which I don't have.
But it learned from some set of.
Right, what it's done is, you know, a natural language processing machine, so it's learned from the way we talk.
Okay.
Kind of how I was talking about the other service which analyzes keywords, a lot of that is going on here, has this reaction to this event. It's taking in all those little details, and especially if you were to include time of day and that kind of information, you get much more insight out of the person. So what my application is doing is it's pulling 200 raw tweets that that person has posted, whether or not they are, you know, data they just said, oh, go look at this article. That would make them agreeable and open. So it's using different indicators based on the way they talk. The words they use, like I said, people that use exclamation points tend to trigger really high on the emotional range scale. People that, capitalization is another thing that we constantly associate back with people yelling. That's something to take into consideration. So to fully explain to you what's going on here, I do not have a science degree for that, but this is the big five traits, the needs, and the values is something that they commonly use in psychology. So they work with psychologists to sort of build this constructive corpus, as it were, to analyze people. Everybody try it again?
And so again, in the demo one, just use the various texts and it will try.
Right. You have to have a certain amount, so it'll tell you if you don't put enough words. I think it is. Is it 1,000? Okay. Basically, if you try and put too few words in, and it also needs a certain number of unique words in this particular application. So if you have "and" written 64 times out of 120 words, you can't analyze that. It's not unique enough. But you could, a couple of paragraphs of somebody's LinkedIn profiles are pretty easy, blogs, Facebook statuses, if you can combine them all together, Twitter statuses. I really want to try Facebook because I feel like that's what people are at their most honest. My Twitter is either me talking about being really excited about technology or me retweeting things. So not really good analysis of my personality. But yeah, you can do anything you do right now, plug it in there and see what it thinks about you.
With the infrastructure that we have, that IBM software, you can use this to tie into, let's say, analyzing a bunch of emails and things like that.
And that sort of goes, one thing that I usually stress when people talk about this is they're like, well, how many API calls can I make? And I said, you really only need to build one personality profile. You build that person, and then when drastic things change, you change the personality. So you don't have to constantly analyze somebody's Facebook or the blog or post to learn about them. You learn about them and you find people that are similar, and you create this gigantic profile. It says at the top, where is it? Your personality, what it says right here where you can't read it, compared to most people who participated in our surveys. So this is, like I said, these people tend to be high in the openness scale because they do this. That's how they practice.
That's a company's level that track, not some provides.
Right, and it also does, there's a sampling error. So this isn't an exact science. So within 5% more or less of 89% is where we're bringing up this scale. So I think we have 30 minutes left.
It'd be good to use that in a court deposition to see if the guy's telling the truth.
Well, you'd have to prove Watson's viable.
Yeah. Law is one of the next big,
Hey, if they accept lie detectors, that's.
Reasonable doubt.
Yeah, right? You can program Watson to lie.
So with Treating Watson, I actually, we weren't going to have enough time tonight, but I have a full write-up on how to do this. So I can share it with you all if you would like to give it a shot. And my email address is on the lab, so if you get any problems, snags, you want to try it later on, feel free to email me. Usually you'll see from my mobile device in the reply. It's constantly not your computer.
Yeah, if you share the information with me, I'll make sure I get it on my blog.
There was one time, I did a workshop a couple weeks ago and I showed them that. It's one of my favorite ones. And the whole night, instead of doing the lab, everybody was like, oh, let's put this person through personality insights and let's do this and this. And I was like, okay, that's one way to do it.
So for that write-up that you mentioned, you can send it to me afterwards, and I'll make sure I put it on my blog with the slides and what you have and all
I
that.
have a link, so I'll send you the link.
Perfect.
It's ibm.biz/tweetwatch. That's it.
Okay.
At least in my Dropbox right now, because we constantly update them.
Sure.
But I'll send you the file.
That's fine. I can just I'll post a link too, as well on my blog.
So everyone want to try that? And this is kind of open up sort of what you'd like to see, what you'd like to know about. I can link you to other conferences if you want to work on that. They have a full-blown, slightly long lab on how to use the Bluemix sites. Have a look into that. That's a 4-part lab. I'll show you what that's at.
One of the things that, if you guys want to see some videos on, how to use Bluemix, if you go to YouTube and search Bluemix tutorials, you got a ton, and there are the ones that hit first are pretty good.
You want it on the dash?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was going to show you Josh.
Yeah.
developer works, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you show that, and just like the front of the developer works, so probably.
So, yeah, I'm gonna show you three things actually, because I forgot I wanted to show you these. This is DevOps services. Remember when I said we had a Git interface? So this is my DevOps services. It comes with your Bluemix account, so you can push your project over. Now, how do I do that? When you're at your application, instead of what this says, it'll say add Git. It'll tell you you have one checkbox to select, so you can clone the project over, and then Bluemix creates that project on Git, and you can edit the code live. So if I were to come here, this is the backend for Treat Nuance, and like I said, I had to manually add a module to it. And I believe this is private, but I have a copy of it that's public, which you will find in the lab because the source code. So I can add people to this project. So I want other people to edit with me, and I can make them administrators, I can make them editors, which will affect the level of changes they can make. But I can hit edit code. Okay. And this is, like a file navigation interface. The great thing about this is I have two laptops. The other one's sitting in my bag. I'm constantly carrying around two laptops. Sometimes the project I need to work on is on one and not the other. And I need to be, I do Android, I do IoT, I work with Intel Edison's, all of that on this laptop. But sometimes I need my other one to do some work, and somehow the code will not be where I need it to be. But what I can do is if I have an internet connection, and I see one little bug I need to fix, and I'm on the go, I just come here. I know this is going to be terribly hard to see. These are the dependencies in Node.js. These are those packages. So this is that quick module. If I saw, I made a syntax error, but I didn't catch it until I'm already on the road somewhere, and all I have is internet, and I don't really have a way to settle down or to get on my other laptop to edit the code. I just come in here, I change it, which I'm not going to. I do a file save. And then I come over here to this fork icon. And what it's going to do is going to show down here any changes, any files that have changed. And if let me just make a change so you can see it.
Add a comment?
Which we,
Oh, is that really a comment? And it'll show me the difference before and after. So it says the green indicates I added something, it'll be highlighted red if I took it out. Now, imagine if two people edited the same file. Somebody coming along can say, compare them side by side before you pushed it out to the remote site and say, I want this change and not that change. Or they both had a good change, so they manually sort of piece it together and you get the best of both worlds. So I would, in this case, I want to select all files, and any good Git files where you add a message about what you're doing. So you get this sort of accounting trail of what's been going on with the file. Commit. Still not in my remote. This can sit here for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and push. And when I push, it kicks out the build and deploy. So earlier when I said it's been, and it says I'm deploying the application, that's what's going on. And what it's going to do is basically push my changes up to the remote site and redeploy my application. So something as simple as I have WordPress running and I need to add a blog section or a snippet of text. I can do this on the go on the fly without having to actually edit the local code, without having to mess with FileZilla or FTP or anything. It does all that for me, deploys it up. So, and it's really great because you can have multiple people working on this at any given time and you have change control. I can back out somebody else's changes if I don't think they're right or if I think they're breaking the application. So that's the ease of DevOps services. And then we have Cloud Amp. Same way you launch the SQL database. That's a lot of information. And in this instance, I created a table called PI output. And Cloud is running what we call documents, and they all have different IDs revisions. So when a document changes, it gets a revision number added to it. So you can constantly keep different versions of the document. I hit the pencil icon. And that's my nested tree structure. And I have this handle, so if I want to come back later and say something I didn't, I have all this information right here. So that's sort of how Cloud Amp works, and I can edit this and save it within the dashboard. But we wanted to look at dash TV. That's the problem with having to Dash TV is a visualization platform, and now it's using R. We got some coding on it. And then go all the way down to data management, not data management. So it's this icon right here. And I'm going to leave it unbound. So whenever you add service, you don't have to bind it to an application. IoT, for instance, if I want to have an organization where I can add devices and create API keys, I never have to connect it to an application. I can just keep creating API keys for my devices and manage them that way. What about that image recognition?
Yeah, the picture from Yahoo News feed and it put shoes on.
It's not an exact science. It's got screens on the study, right?
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time with Watson. A lot of time.
Just as long as you don't start saying your boyfriend is awesome.
Oh, I have one of those. I haven't seen him in a while, but he's still there. He takes care of my cats.
Yeah, there's a concept that I'm not quite grasping.
Okay.
Like, let's say that you have two developers working on an app. Where is the test environment? Where is the systems integration environment?
Okay, so the way this is going to, when I showed you DevOps services and the different build pipelines,
Yes.
so those things that went from build to deploy, you can add more in the middle. So I can build and go into a test environment, and then I can build again and go into a live environment.
Okay, so let's say that you have three environments. The amount of the cost is 3 times. So let's say the test environment is 150 gig and then
The beautiful thing is you only have to turn on that test environment when you want to test.
What do you guys think?
So you just leave the test environment turned off. And then as part of the build process, you build it, bring up the test environment, deploy it, run automated tests. As long as it clears fine, it shuts itself down, and then you can deploy it through production.
Right, so you really, and this one, it's kind of like that agile methodology where you're constantly doing that cycle of build, deploy, you have your building on errors and fix them. Like he said, you just, generally, a lot of times what we'll do in this environment is you have local testing and live deploy. So you don't necessarily use that DevOps methodology. But yeah, you pay for usage. So I have 5 apps on here, I'm only paying for one. Strictly speaking.
thanks.
I think it's like 2 apps running 24 hours a day. When you shut them down, I need to add another one. And I don't even got to the credit card.
You work for IBM.
Yeah, I get
Well, it's right. Well, I got a year of about the same as
Yeah.
mine, instead of one for 30 days, I get a year.
Great.
So this is the Dash DB dashboard, and you can deploy the service at any time and play with it. The beauty of this is they have sample tables, so you can kind of see how it works without having to do all the data loading work. So what we're going to do is the analytics. I'm just going to show you that. I'm going to select our scripts for fun. So it, as is, has sample projects. These are sample tables that are already loaded in the application. Kind of like whenever you were to install DB2 or MySQL or any of that, there's always the sample tables that everybody learns to work with, and then you drop them as soon as you could because they were security vulnerability. So this one, this is the background code script, as it were. Just because I already have it submitted. And it said customer acquisition was my data. And it sort of plots it out in a different graphic as an analysis. And that's what Dash DB does. It's a visualization of your data using analytical statistical models. Sure, if you want me to add it.
It's a analytics warehouse.
Right.
So it took DB2 and then some of the database analytics that we got in Atiza, and then they merged the two and brought them onto Bluemix. So you can do basically have an analytics appliance on the web.
How do you use 3D saw some of the demos on 3D charts?
Visual 3D.
You've seen some of the charts on some of the Watson services.
Right, like Watson does like an animated 3D graphic for a lot of its stuff. I think this one's, in my research, has only been these 2D sort of stuff you kind of argue into other institutes and organizations.
So that time series block, is that part of Watson or is that part of
This is part of Dash DB, so this is just part of the analytics that he's well, not SPSS yet, but that analytics background has, this particular thing has nothing to do with Watson. And then we wanted to show, what's the third one?
Show DevOps.
DevOps,
Yeah.
I lost it, that's here, we have 17 minutes, so. That's all I have, and I alluded to a ton of information. Again, I will send you in the lab material if you want to go through it. I would have had to done this whole session on that lab, and it's a little bit funner to look at everything instead of having to concentrate on coding, but I recommend you try it. It doesn't require much programming knowledge, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really awesome. So, got to see Bluemix in action. So yeah, we're going to do another meetup event in probably about a month. We usually have one here. We may also add one up in Broward. So if you guys get a chance, go out to meetup.com and rate the meetup event. The more stars we get, the more people we get to join. So please do that. Thank you guys for coming. You guys can stay for a little bit, chit chat and whatnot. There's a little bit of pizza left, and there's some soda. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.